Hey everyone, and welcome to one more episode of Protecting Wildlife. And today we have Jennifer Gardner. Welcome to you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Tanya.
You're most welcome. And I'm so blessed for this amazing organization. IFAW is here. And tell me about who is this amazing organization?
So the organization is the International Fund for Animal Welfare. And we are a global organization that works to protect animals. And that is through some of our conservation activities and also more animal welfare or rescue-based activities.
Beautiful. So in the work you're doing, what is the three biggest threats you're facing in your work?
So for my work at IFAW, I work in the Disaster Response and Risk Reduction Program. So we are looking at animals around the world. That could be anything from your pet cat to wild animals, and looking at even livestock as well, to see how we can reduce the negative impacts that disasters have on these animals. So it's a really great program, and it allows us to work in a variety of communities with a variety of animals. So when we look at the threats, I think we can all agree that climate change is really our biggest threat. We are seeing more disasters around the world, so they're increasing in frequency. They're also increasing in intensity, that we've seen more disasters in the past few years that are record-breaking. And the other issue that we're seeing that's related to this is what we call cascading events. So that's when a community faces one disaster, like a heat wave, and then it turns into a drought, and then that turns into a wildfire. And then finally, when the fire is over and they get rain, that turns into a flash flood.
Oh,
so
wow.
Having these back-to-back disasters in one community, it never gives them a chance to recover, and it just keeps getting worse. So if you think about the impact on animals during that, so now they're facing intense heat, and so they're really thirsty, but then there's no water because of the drought, and then now here comes the wildfire. So they're already so compromised that when these disasters keep happening, it gives them very little chance of survival. So really, looking at climate change is definitely one of the biggest threats that we face.
That is crazy. I did not know the step you're telling us. I did not know they was connecting so awful together.
Yeah, we're seeing it more and more. So it's quite devastating for the communities, because they really don't get a chance to breathe, right? Like, it's just going from one disaster to another. It's really hard. And I think, the next threat that we see that's related to this is that climate change is affecting more communities, but those communities that are already vulnerable seem to be the ones that get impacted most. So places that live along the coastline, where these communities are already facing economic challenges, well, now the water is rising and it's starting to come into their communities. So where do they go? And so when they start looking for new places, that means they're pushing into potentially wildlife habitat and, having more conflicts with wildlife. So, the fact that these vulnerable communities, there's not a plan in place for them, that is really a big challenge that we have in the world of disaster response and risk reduction.
Oh my God, I did not know that there was belong, like they are so much, what they call it, connected together when there's seen a cast, like the global warming, how the wildlife is moving into closer to the humans, as I understand what you're sharing. So that's awful.
Right, yeah, and then it's going to have more issues with resource competition, right? So as people are moving in, they might be needing to chop down wood so they can use it for their fires, for their stoves, and yet that's the same habitat that animals need to survive. So it just creates that competition between people and animals.
It's crazy. So in this thread you're just sharing is what solution are you using, or what skills are you using to create as a success to stop that like ripple effect, if I can say that?
You know, I think that the biggest opportunity for us is really working from the ground up. That seems to be a way that we can really prevent some of these issues from happening, is to work with the communities at that local level, and ensuring that they understand the threats that they are facing as a community, and that they can start to outline like what plans they can make. So what we want to do is build their resilience, right? So when something does happen, it doesn't shake their economy so much that then they may, you know, rely on wild animals, for example. So we want to work with them to look at the risks that they face, develop plans to ensure that they're able to adapt as the environment around them is adapting. So that's kind of our big one, is really working with the local communities and including all animals, right? So we also want to look at how they're managing their livestock and how they're managing companion animals, and kind of look at that bigger picture at that local level.
That is beautiful.
And one of the other ways that, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Like, just go. Like, I just say it was beautiful how you're working with the community and showing how they can, I believe, like see other opportunities so they can use what they have instead of take it for the wild nature.
Correct. Yeah. So, and I guess one of the other ways that we also try to do to combat some of these challenges is really looking for opportunities for collaboration. So not only does IFAW collaborate frequently with a variety of organizations, we also really promote that in the local communities, that animal groups are working with, you know, typically human groups, and that the government is working with NGOs. And then we also try to involve even some of the private companies, right? Like, they're also part of this. So trying to get everybody to recognize, you know, what challenges are out there, and how each one might be able to bring something special to the table, so that way we can look at problem solving from a more holistic angle.
That is beautiful how you're connecting like all areas. It seems like so many areas together, because we can solve this challenge when we are working together as a private person, as a company, as a famous people, as the government, you name it. When we're working together, we can really make a big impact if we really know like how to do it, like get a good awareness. So that's so beautiful, you working with so many different areas and connected that together.
Yep. And I think like the one other way that we really are trying to address some of these challenges is looking at legislation as well. So, you know, we're working at that really local level, but like we're trying to also go up to the top level and making sure that animals are part of a disaster plan. So we see that around the world, a lot of communities do have a plan for how to handle disasters, but often those are just for people, right? So we're starting to see more and more that animals are included, and we push for that, because if animals are included in that disaster plan, then that means there is a plan, so you know what to do when a disaster happens, and that resources are allocated, because you can make all the plans you want, but if you don't have resources to dedicate to it, then you know, it's going to be really challenging. So we really are pushing for really including animals as part of that disaster plan, and trying to focus more of these resources on the planning phase or risk reduction phase, because we do believe that the more resources you put at the planning part means less resources that are going to be needed if a disaster happens, because you'll have already mitigated some of the impact of that disaster. And disaster response is very expensive. So the more we can do to lessen that impact, you know, the better it's going to be.
That is crazy. I did not know the animals is not included in that plan at all. I thought like with my mind, of course, it's included when there's a, what you call it, cash. I cannot say that word. Like a big challenge that's happening.
Catastrophic.
exactly, catastrophic. When that's happening, I was believing the animals was in it. It's a little bit like, what? And that's crazy. That is
Yeah.
so good you
Yeah. A lot of
already.
places a lot of places it's not. It's definitely something that's a bit newer. And, but we're seeing it pick up. I think that now animals are definitely seen a bit more when you see on the news a disaster happening. Of course, first it's always about the people. And then once we kind of understand that the people are safe, then the news typically turns to animals, right? And how animals are affected. And I just think that more and more we do look at animals as something that we really value as a community to have, whether that's pets or livestock or even wildlife.
Yeah. So what specific tool has been used in that solution to get a successful process?
I think that it's a little bit hard for us in saying like a specific tool, but certainly we have some practices that I think have been really successful. And this is not just for IFAW, but this is really organizations, other organizations in this field. But we often really promote sharing of lessons learned. And that means that when you do face a disaster and you have a plan or a response plan that you follow, that at the end of that event, you want to reflect back and think like, okay, well, what went well and what didn't go well? And not to try to hide what didn't go well, because we're human, right? We always make mistakes. But really is taking like, well, what didn't really work and sharing that with other communities. So that way they don't make the same mistake you did. And you can think about ways to do better next time. And I think that is really how we've improved tremendously in this field, is actually not only as a team discussing what went well and what didn't go well, but also sharing that information with other organizations so that way we can improve. So I think that's been really successful for us.
That is really powerful to really look at the feedback, like look back and see what went well, how can we tweak it, how can we do better to next time, or really learn from the process. That is a powerful, and that also like a very big leadership skills to have, to really look at what have been through, what is good, how can we change this. So that is powerful. I must say, wow.
And I think part of that also, another kind of like tool that we use is mentoring and trying to build that local capacity. So working with communities that seem to face disasters more frequently, trying to find a way to ensure that they can manage themselves when most disasters happen. Obviously, there's some big ones, right, that just far exceed anybody's capacity. But we do want to ensure that every community does have a plan and some amount of resources to manage themselves, because with knowing that disasters are increasing in frequency and sometimes like right now, right, we've seen multiple disasters happening in a row. It's so important that everybody has something, because organizations like IFAW that respond to disasters, you can't be everywhere at once. So it's really been important for us to build that local capacity, mentor when needed, and just kind of be that lifeline, is that people can call, and say, okay, I've done this, this, and this. What do you think I should do next? And, we don't have to be there on the ground. Technology is so amazing now to be able to have like a face-to-face call, despite how far away we are from one another. It's just so, it makes it a lot easier and more effective. Yeah. And I think that looking at some of this technology, that really is helpful. So not only is it helping organizations connect, but it's also sometimes helping to know what the needs are. So if you're in a remote community and a hurricane or cyclone has come through, you can take pictures on your phone, and there's like so many apps now that are used after a disaster for people just to upload, like, this is where I am, and it automatically connects with their GPS, so we can really see, oh wow, this community is really remote, and look at how badly they were affected, and that that allows us to do planning while we're sitting, you know, maybe in our office, to know then, okay, let's focus here because the need is really great here. But it kind of cuts down on some of that time to do an assessment, because we're actually asking the people affected to participate in that assessment. So technology, I think, is like another really great tool that we are really embracing.
That is so beautiful also to work as you have been in our community, be like a unit, so people really feel they do a different and can be a part of something bigger and give it to you, so they feel like momentum, have momentum in life if they can do this and give it to you and be a part of to solution on this global warming or that word is so castor-free. Oh my God.
Cascading.
Exactly. That is happening, so you can like people can move instead of like what to do. So they always like we all have a mobile and can send that to you. That is really powerful, and people can be a part of that on that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's your community, it's your family, and the more you can share your voice about what has happened or what you need, or sharing also lessons learned of how the disaster impacted your community, it just makes us all so much stronger to have everybody's voice heard.
That is so beautiful. I have a question I'm very curious about. So when you talk about resources and to have that to people, what resources do IFAW give resources to others, or?
We do have a disaster response grant program, so that way communities are able to request funding if they've experienced a disaster and they need additional resources, like emergency feed for animals, or enclosures to put animals if they've been displaced, or repairing shelters, that sort of thing. So we do have that. And some of the work that we do is in advance. So the response grant program is typically after a community has faced a disaster that they can apply for grant funding. But we also do a lot of work with certain risk-prone communities. And we try to provide like training and workshops on how to develop a disaster response plan or how to build resilience. And through part of that, we'll identify what the greatest needs are for that community to have what they need during a disaster. And we do help in some of those cases. Either IFAW will help, but we also look at what's available locally, and see if there's a way to share resources that, you know, maybe the next area, the next community over has something, and maybe you can develop a relationship to be able to share certain resources. So it's really all about kind of everybody chipping in where they can.
Well, that is so beautiful. I really believe we all have a part of us we will want to give back, and most of we really don't know. Some of us don't know like how to give back. And as I experience you talking, and as I know I follow IFAW, is you also inspire people to how people can help you guys, and that is beautiful. So you give some inspiration, motivation to people to show people the way how they can help.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that knowledge you have now, what guidance do you want to give to the audience so they can make a change in lifestyle?
I mean, I think that, you know, what you said about like kind of feeling inspired and wanting to take action, you know, that's what we really hope to do, is to share stories about what's happening and inspire people to take action, even if it's within their own family or within their own community, you know, but making those changes. Like I know everyone knows that phrase, like, be the change you want to see in the world. It's been said a million times by a lot of really great people. And I think that that is so true. Like, I really feel like that's such a phrase to follow, that, you know, if you lead by example and do what is going to benefit your community, then hopefully that message spreads, and your neighbor will do the same thing, and their neighbor will do the same thing, and the next community over will do the same thing. But I think just spreading that information about, you know, what is it that that we can do to make a positive impact. And like I said, the goal is really to reduce that negative impact disasters have on animals. And so we can all play a part to accomplish that.
Mm. Well, that is so beautiful. Like, I also really believe that and stand on that when like the change is starting with us first before we can like see it make it. And when we really choose to be the change, better version of ourselves and learn through our actions, learn through our mistake, because as you say, we are human, we will make mistakes. A mistake is not a bad thing. A mistake is just a sign for us to like, okay, this is just feedback for us to like, okay, how can I tweak it? How can I change in the next steps forwards? So that's so beautiful and powerful. And when we really choose to be the different, we also will inspire and motivate other guys around us, and they will do the same. And then this like, what do you call the ripple effect, or like the drop in the water is?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is so beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So how can people make like in their personal lifestyle? So for me in Denmark, how can I make a change in my lifestyles that could support your work?
Well, I think the first thing we always want to tell people, especially in the world of disasters, is that we want you to have your own plan for when a disaster happens. And so the first part of that is understanding like what risks are you in Denmark in your home? What risks are there to your community? Mm-hmm. Do you live in an area where there might be flooding? Or do you live in an area where there might be wildfires? Do you live in an area where there might be an earthquake? But really to kind of think through what risks you as an individual face. And then once you understand that, think about, well, what would your plan be? So if flooding does start to happen, where will you go? Do you have somebody that lives in an area that's not flooded that you can go stay with? You know, when would you make that decision that like, wow, it's looking really bad here. Maybe I need to try to go somewhere because I could be, at risk. And when you're making that plan, we want you to think about your whole family, right? So I know you have a pet bird, so you got to make sure your bird has a plan too, right? So ensuring that when you do go stay at your friend's house in a next nearby city, that your bird can come with you and go stay there. And I think in part of that also is making sure you have enough supplies. So we always tell people that you should have enough supplies to last you 3 days, because typically when a disaster happens, it takes about 3 days before any humanitarian or government services can start intervening to get you emergency food or water. So it's important that you and your bird have enough supplies for 3 days to last. So that is really what we start with. We always want to make sure first that you have a plan, because that means then we don't need to worry about Tanya and her bird. Like, she's all set. At least for 3 days,
I think I will live by bird food. It's like, oh yeah, of course. But it is like, that is very interesting. I get like, where I live, there is no like castor, or it's so difficult to be castor free, like big things that can happen. Let me see, I was on plan, was a place where something happened. That could be nice to think about, like, if something happened, how fast can I get my bird out of the door? Okay, I need to connect this box together. Where is the box? Or that's a long gone. Okay, I need to have the box close to me, because if something happened, I do not have the time, I believe, to going out to get it in and again, connecting it together and take my bird out. It's like, woo, there's a lot of time I use on that one. Instead of like have a closet, a room for the inlet, and put the box in there. So it's just like straight, can take it out and fast my bird in it, and out we go if we need to go out. Definitely, that is crazy to really also to
we
know,
call
like,
that, I was gonna say, we call that a go bag.
Yeah, a go.
So a go bag, yeah. So you have a bag ready that has your cage in it for your bird and his bird seed and your bird seed that you're going to eat with him or whatever. And that way it's all ready, right? Because there could be another disaster too, like even a fire, right?
Yeah.
Like a fire could catch in your building or your neighbor's home, and then suddenly you have to run out and go. So having that bag ready just makes it so much better.
Yeah, and also less stressful and fast for the bird to get out, because I know birds is so sensitive about if they smoke, they can like, it's so bad for them, because bird is so sensitive of the things you have in your home, what you're doing and all that. So definitely I will definitely make a new plan in my home, because I've never think about that once. Like, yes, of course I can bird like get fire in my home.
Yeah, so that's kind of step one for us, is start first with yourself and make sure that you can save yourself in a disaster.
Yeah, of course. Like, so if you're an airplane, you need to take your mask on first before you can help other people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, totally. That's exactly right. That you can't save others if you're too busy trying to save yourself, right? Like you have to get yourself set, and then you're able to help others. And that's really also, like I said, we try not to be a part of the disaster. That the best we can, we don't want to have to lean on that system or rely on that system. So the more we can do ourselves, it's just better. I'm gonna pick up my dog now because she's gonna bark.
Oh my God.
She finished chewing on her treat.
Oh, I love that.
She'll make a guest appearance.
Always got so cute. My bird is in another room right now.
Probably.
Oh, that is amazing. And like, I also really love what you're saying, because I really believe one of the things I will also love about IFAW is, I get the feeling you're so authentic about the posters you're posting up. You don't hide the things, you're just honest about the things. And that is, I believe that's a rare thing through NGOs to show that side. So that is, I think, is so beautiful and powerful. And you show that to the public, I must say.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, so the next thing that I think you can do as a person to really help our cause is to get to know the wildlife in your community. Oftentimes when disasters do happen, it's, a lot of times we do focus on cats and dogs, right? Because they share our homes with us. And so people are most closest to those, to the animals that share the home. And so, but we also know that there's a lot of animals that share our backyard or our neighborhood. And so we want to get to know those animals as well, to find out, first of all, what wild animals live in your backyard. Like here, I can look out and see I have squirrels and rabbits and different types of birds. And we even have coyotes, like, so it ranges in size too. And then I want to know like what their habitats are, like where do they go, what do they need, but just kind of like understanding a little bit more about the wildlife, because then I want to think about like, okay, well, if I do live in an area where we face floods, what happens to those animals during a flood? And is there anything that I can do to at least not necessarily help, but like not be part of the problem? So maybe not let my dog run loose if I know a disaster is coming, because I want to ensure that the animals aren't afraid and that, I don't cause more problems for them. But also like, knowing who you can reach out to for advice. So it's not just me making a decision like, oh, well, he looks hungry, so I want to give him, I'll leave him I'll pack him a go bag too of, bird seed. It's like, well, no, he doesn't eat that. So, but, connecting with your, if you have like a wildlife rehabilitation center or even like a park service or a government agency that works with the wildlife, but maybe reaching out to them and finding out, how animal, like what can you do as a person? And I think even at a minimum, just knowing who to call. Like, I think that's really probably what a lot of people can do. So that way, if you do come across an animal that seems like it's in distress during a disaster, you know who to call, and you don't try to go out there yourself and rescue that animal if you don't have the skill sets to do so. But just kind of being aware, I think, is what that really is, and having that knowledge in advance. You know, you can stick the number on your refrigerator, put it in your phone, but just kind of to know who to call if you see an animal in need.
That is powerful to think about yourself first, think about your family or pet if you have them, have the go kit. Did you call it go kits? Close
Go
to
kit, go bag.
Go
Yeah.
bag.
Mm-hmm.
Go fast. Close to you, so you just and also to get awareness about what is living in your backyard. I have a lot of frogs that is out of my window, and birds, and definitely of course squirrels. I always believe that. But be aware about where they're living. So if something happened, I can be more aware about if something happened outside, if there is a close, because there's some rocks and these hiding some in there. So maybe if I have time to take the rocks away to see if the animals is hiding in there, to save them, maybe. What do you think about that?
Well, I would say always check with your local authorities about what the best course of action is, because we don't want to do something that might cause unintentional harm. You know, we've seen stories of that too, where people, you know, try to intervene because it's, you know, their hearts are in the right place, but, you know, maybe that animal didn't need that action. So we always just want to just be aware and know who to call if you see something that looks a little bit worrisome. So that way, you know, you can take action and take the right action for that animal.
That is powerful. So don't go close to the animals, wild animals, but they have a call when you call them and ask them for advice. I know there is an NGO in Denmark that is working with wildlife in Denmark, and there is a phone you can call, and you can also be like a volunteer and learn how to work in the field to know when the animals hurt, when the animals needs like some support, or you never know what is happening, so that you get a lot of education as a beautiful organization. And there was one point where I was driving a car with my friend, and it was a big what you call big bird, I cannot remember the English word for it, and they had been hit by a car the other way. So of course I was looking the back, the what they call it, like mirror, if some car was behind me, and I was just like stamping my car. And my friend's like, what was happening? So I was running out to take this big bird and have a big cast, what you call it, box, plastic box behind, and I said to my friends, please empty that. And he was calling the organization, and we're going to a vet. But I only did that because I have the education in to take around birds, also to know, is this a bird that want to take the beak in your eyes if you're close to it, or how is this bird erecting on you, and how did you take on it? So definitely I will never do that if I did not have the education on it, to go in the field and take around this bird and save him.
And actually, the point you bring up is kind of that number 3 action that that we would love for people to take, and then that's get involved. And so find out if there's opportunities, like if you do have an interest in wildlife, you know, do you have a local rehabilitation center where you can take a class and learn how, you know, how to handle animals, or volunteer at their facility, or participate at outreach events. And then, you know, of course, there's usually good companion animal groups as well, where you can get experience working with cats and dogs and other companion animals. Even human-based groups is really helpful. So if there's a disaster response community-based organization, or like a Red Cross, where maybe you can go and take courses in first aid, or, you know, CPR, that, you know, anything that we can do to build our awareness of what's happening in our community, get to know our local resources that might be activated during a disaster, and also even in yourself, you know, building up those skill sets, that builds up your whole community's capacity to manage a disaster on their own, because now we've got all these people that are super involved, and that's just so helpful to have a really engaged community.
Yeah, that is 3 very beautiful steps to also be aware and also use our own body, use ourselves, because if something happened for me, I would love if someone know how to give me what you call it, heart massage, what you call like CPI. And if I was there, I would love someone to do that. Why? So that's why it was also important for me to educate in me how to give CPI. Oh my God, that's to another one. Words today is a little bit
yeah. So that's 3. So the 4th one that we would ask is just kind of taking those steps to help protect our planet. That, you know, we are just seeing the impact of climate change, and anything that we can do as individuals to try to slow down this process or reverse it is really powerful. So whether that's just consuming less, you know, buying locally when you can, investing in, you know, solar power or renewable energy, but, you know, just looking for those ways that as an individual, you can just make daily choices about how to really better our planet.
Yeah, that is very beautiful 4 steps. Do we also have a 5th step?
The 5th step is kind of like what we were saying before, is that be the change you want to see, and really sharing this messaging with those around you. So when you do make that plan for yourself and your family, you know, talking to your friends about that so that they can do the same, and you know, talking to them about ways to protect our planet or ways to get involved with the community, but really just sharing that information with those around you will make a big change.
Definitely. I'm committed to make a plan. I have not made a plan. I'm committed, because when I'm standing there, we need to have a plan, because our head is like going out instead of with like have a plan to go follow. Yeah, that's so
awesome.
beautiful.
Well, that would be so great. Yeah, let us know when you get the plan.
I will definitely send you some pictures and also put it out there. I make my plan. There's some bird boxes. So if there was a last thing you will want to share with the audience, Jennifer, what will that be about the amazing work you're doing?
You know, I think that anything we can do, like I've said, to reduce that risk of how a disaster will impact us is so huge. That we know the planet is changing. We worry about what's going to happen, and it's time for us to take action. And having a disaster response team is not enough. We have to invest in the risk reduction side. It's maybe not as, you know, doesn't always get the great photo of rescuing the animal out of the flood. Like, we know that is what everyone wants to see, but I really want to see communities sitting down, coming together, and creating a plan for how to handle disasters that affect their community, the whole community, animals and people.
True. Living beings, as I'm using living beings,
exactly.
Humans and animals, living beings. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here, part of this show, Protecting Wildlife, and thank you so much for talking about the IFAW work, because that is so important and beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing a piece of the work with this in this interview. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. It's really great talking with you today.
The same to you. Thank you so much. And to you, audience, if you go back to the newsletter, there is all the IFAW information, and there is also a workbook. So we really inspire you to use a half hour after here to make the plan, to make a commitment, because when we put commitment on the information we get better and stronger to make new actions, new choices in life. Most of us, when we hear new information, we just like leave it like, oh, I do it in 1 hour, I do it small. On that point, the knowledge is just get the awareness you have, your what your mind is clear right now. Make the commitment straight after. On that point, your brain is more connected to it to will make a change. So really, please use a half hour to make the plan for yourself and show it to us and share and inspire your friends out there, as Jennifer was saying, inspire others to make the ripple effects, so we all could get it together as a community and help each other. With that,
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much and see you guys. Bye.